The survival instructor froze mid. Gesture, environmental suit still. Displayed behind him as the human. Cadet's raised hand shattered 3 centuries of Deathworld doctrine. Instructor Helix, the girl's voice cut through the lecture hall with casual confidence. I've walked on Earth barefoot multiple times since I was like 3. The crystalline being's faceted surface flickered with colors that indicated severe cognitive dissonance. Behind him, the holographic display showed a rotating image of Earth. Classification, Class 12 Death World. Status theoretically survivable with maximum protection, actual expeditions. 0 successful, 300 elite cadets from 60 species went absolutely silent. That's Kilix's harmonic voice wavered. Something his students had never heard. In 4 terms of his legendarily composed instruction, that's not possible. Earth's atmospheric composition alone would what? The human name badge reading. Nix leaned back in her seat with genuine curiosity. I mean, I'm sitting here breathing it right now. You've got the life support systems calibrated to Earth standard atmosphere for us, a Methian cadet. The third row made a sound like escaping gas. You're telling us the Academy standard atmosphere is a Class 12 Deathworld composition, environmental baseline for human habitation. Kelix managed, accessing his data slate with trembling manipulator appendages. His internal structure resonated with stress frequencies. But humans require the same protective protocols as any species when interfacing with. No, we really don't. Nix raised her bare foot, displaying it to the lecture hall with the unself-conscious ease of someone showing off a minor curiosity. See no environmental damage, no protective coating, no cellular degradation. I literally walked through grass this morning on the way to the transit station. The Velkin combat instructor in the observation deck leaned forward, her thermal signature spiking with alarm. Commander, we have a situation. The girl just claimed unprotected surface contact with Class 12 biomatter. Another voice responded through the comm system. I'm watching the feed. Get department heads to that lecture hall. Now, Kilix's entire structure had shifted to deep ultraviolet, the crystalline equivalent of an existential crisis. Cadet Nix, I have personally studied Earth environmental data for 16 years. The planet's surface hosts approximately 8 million distinct species, many of which produce toxins that can kill on contact. The solar radiation levels would burn unprotected tissue, and yeah, we call that getting a sunburn. Nick shrugged, utterly unbothered. It's annoying, but you just put some lotion on it and you're fine in a few days. Usually happens when you forget sunscreen at the beach. Beach. The word came out of Kelix's vocalization matrix like he was testing the pronunciation of an ancient curse. You're describing recreational exposure to Class 12 conditions. I mean, yeah. Nix glanced around at her fellow cadets, many of whom had gone very still in the species-specific ways that indicated shock. Did you guys think humans lived in environmental domes on Earth? Because that would be ridiculous. There's like 10 billion of us. We mostly just live outside. A Quilxian cadet species requiring pressurized suits for anything below 8 atmospheres made a sound like cracking ice. The human just sat outside like it's a casual concept. For us it is. Another human cadet called from the back row, apparently deciding. This was now an open discussion. I grew up on a farm. I spent basically my Entire childhood outside barefoot. Usually because shoes were uncomfortable. Kilix's color spectrum went completely white, total systemic shock of farm, agricultural operations. You're describing sustained unprotected exposure to class 12 surface conditions. As childhood. Well, yeah, Nix looked genuinely confused by his confusion. I mean, that's where the food grows. Somebody has to take care of it. My family did. Corn and soybeans mostly, but we had a vegetable garden too, you know the normal stuff, tomatoes, peppers, zucchini that grows faster than you can give it away. Food grows on the surface. Where you walked barefoot, Kilix seemed to be having trouble processing sequential concept, the same surface that our models indicate should cause cellular breakdown in most known species within 6 to 10 minutes of exposure. Your models might need updating. Nix clears throat. Offered helpfully because I've done literally thousands of hours of unprotected surface exposure and I'm fine, better than fine actually. My immune system's probably stronger for it. That's what my mom always said. Playing in the dirt builds character. The lecture hall's main doors opened. Commander Jixuno entered with 3 department heads, their various locomotion methods creating a symphony of concern as they approached the front of the room. Instructor Kilix, the commander's mandibles clicked with barely controlled urgency. I need you to verify something. Did this cadet just claim unprotected death world surface exposure during developmental stages? Multiple cadets, sir. Kilix's harmonic voice had gone flat with shock. They're describing Earth surface conditions as recreational. Commander Jixuno's compound eyes fixed on Nix with the intensity of someone watching their entire understanding of xenobiology collapse in real time. Cadet, how long can your species survive on Earth's surface without environmental protection? Nix blinked. Our whole lives, I mean, that's where we live. Commander's thorax plate shifted. Your whole lives? Yeah, we're kind of born there, another human cadet added. It's our planet, 3 centuries of death. World survival doctrine shattered with the sound of 6 species making their version of stunned silence. Commander Jixuno moved to the central podium, displacing Quelix with a kind of authority that ended arguments. Cadet Nix, you will explain in detail your typical day on Earth's surface. Leave nothing out. Nix shrugged, still radiating casual confusion. Sure, I'd wake up around dawn. That's when the sun comes up, and walk outside to do my chores, feed the chickens, collect eggs, check the fence lines, all barefoot. Because like I said, shoes are uncomfortable when you're doing farm work in summer. The Glacian cadets cooling systems audibly strained. Dawn clears throat. You described direct stellar exposure as a timing reference. That's what dawn means. Yeah, Nix nodded, like she was helping someone understand basic arithmetic. Then I'd usually have breakfast, eggs, bacon, toast, and head out to whatever field needed work. Weeding mostly, which meant kneeling directly on the dirt for hours. Unfiltered soil contact, one of the department heads whispered. Their vocalization apparatus barely functional, dermally absorbed. Microorganisms, potential parasitic contamination, chemical exposure from decomposing organic matter. I mean, yeah, I got dirty. Nix laughed, though. Sound utterly carefree. That's why we had showers. You just wash off, and you're fine. You just wash off. Kilix repeated the words like they were a foreign language. The contamination Protocols alone would require soap. We used soap. Nix looked around at the assembled authority figures with dawning realization. Wait, do you guys think Earth is actually dangerous, like to humans, to everyone? A Velcan instructor shouted from the observation deck, their thermal control completely failing. Your planet's oxygen concentration would corrode my species' respiratory membranes. In under 3 minutes, the atmospheric pressure would cause our internal cavities to collapse. The temperature fluctuations between your diet cycle would send us into thermal shock. Oh, Nix processed this. Yeah, I guess you need a suit, but for humans, that's just weather. You wear a jacket. When it's cold, a jacket, Commander. Jixuno's mandibles clicked rapidly. Textile-based thermal regulation for a Class 12 temperature variance. My little brother used to run around in the snow, wearing nothing but shorts. Another human cadet offered from the middle. Rose made snow angels had snowball fights, normal winter stuff. Quilxian cadet's pressure suit hissed as they hyperventilated. Your sibling exposed unprotected skin to frozen precipitation. Yeah, kids are weird like that. Human cadet grinned. He'd come inside, all red-faced, and Mom would make him hot chocolate. Good times. I need xenobiology here immediately. Command. Jixuno spoke into his comm unit with barely restrained urgency. And someone get me the original Earth classification committee's research files, all of them. Commander Kilix's voice had regained some stability, though his color spectrum still flickered erratically. If I may, the Methian delegation attempted an Earth atmospheric study 21 years ago. They reported catastrophic suit failure at the oxygen interface point because your suits aren't designed for oxygen-rich environments, Nix said, suddenly understanding. You'd need completely different equipment. Earth's atmosphere is like 21% oxygen. That's normal for us. The Methian cadet who'd spoken earlier made a sound like a pressure valve releasing. 21%. That concentration would burn through our biological filters and ignite our internal methane reserves. We'd explode. That sounds bad, Nix agreed sympathetically, but yeah, that's just regular air for us. We breathe it all day, every day. Babies breathe it. Juvenile humans, a newly arrived xenobiology specialist said slowly, her antenna quivering with academic horror. Developing organisms with incomplete immune systems, exposed continuously to 21% oxygen saturation and everything else. Another human cadet added helpfully, dust, pollen, pet dander, seasonal allergies. I was allergic to basically every tree species in our region, and my parents just gave me antihistamines and sent me outside. Anyway, antihistamines. The xenobiology specialist vocalization carried the weight of someone watching their entire field of study become obsolete. Chemical immune suppression so you could maintain exposure to allergens. I still had to mow the lawn. The human cadet shrugged. Grass doesn't cut itself. Commander Jixuno pulled up his data slate, manipulating it with increasingly frantic movements. The classification system defines Class 12 Deathworlds as environments requiring maximum protective protocols, 0 unprotected exposure time, strictly limited expedition duration with extensive decontamination procedures. He looked up at the assembled humans. You're describing this as childhood. Pretty much, yeah, Nix leaned forward. Earnestly, I mean there are dangerous things on Earth, bears poisonous, snakes lightning storms, but you just learn to avoid them or deal with them. Common sense stuff, bears, Kirix. Repeated faintly, apex predators in your environmental classification, well, yeah, but they mostly leave you alone if you don't bother them, and lightnings only dangerous if you're standing in an open field during a storm, which is why you don't do that. Nix paused, although my uncle got struck once and survived. Lost some hearing, but he was otherwise fine, survived electrical discharge. Class 12 atmospheric phenomenon. The xenobiology specialist sat down heavily, her limbs trembling. This contradicts every survival model we have. I went swimming in the ocean once, a human cadet in the back volunteered, got stung by a jellyfish, hurt like hell, but I was fine after a few hours. Ocean Commander Jixuno's compound eyes had gone completely still, the insectoid equivalent of a system crash. Unprocessed water, unknown depth, native predators. There were dolphins, the cadet continued. Cheerfully, they're friendly, played around our boat for like an hour. The lecture hall had become a cascade of species-specific panic responses. Kilix's crystalline structure resonated at frequencies indicating complete paradigm collapse. The Methian cadet suit pressure readings were approaching dangerous levels. The Quilxian had stopped moving entirely, and the humans sat there describing their nightmare Deathworld childhood with nostalgia and smiles. The lecture hall had transformed into an emergency academic summit. 12 department heads now occupied the front rows, their various sensory organs fixed on Nix with the intensity of scientists watching their life's work disintegrate. Dr. Vilnick's head of environmental sciences initiated what would become the most disturbing interview in galactic military history. Cadet Nix, I need you to quantify your species' environmental protection requirements for Earth's surface operations. None, Nix answered simply. None as in minimal, Dr. Vilnick clarified, his vocal sacs pulsing. Hopefully, reduced protocols perhaps. Lightweight filtration, none as in zero. Nothing, we just go outside. Nix spread her hands. That's it, that's the whole procedure. The doctor's chromatophores flashed through distress patterns. Respiratory filtration, we breathe the air. Dermal protection barriers, just skin, regular skin. Optical shielding from stellar radiation. Sunglasses if it's bright, sometimes not even that. Thermal regulation systems. Clothes, sometimes shorts and a tank top if it's hot. Dr. Vilnick made a sound like biological systems shutting down. Clothes, clears throat. Textile fibers against class 12. Temperature variance, works pretty well. Actually, Nix smiled, though I knew this guy in high school who wore shorts year-round, even in winter, said he didn't get cold. Commander Jixuno leaned forward, mandibles clicking with forced come. Clears throat. Let me verify my understanding. Your species evolved on Earth. You developed there. Your entire biological baseline assumes class 12 conditions as normal. I mean, yeah. Nix glanced at the other human cadets. Where else would we have evolved? Every other space-faring species evolved on class 3 through class 6 worlds. Killick said quietly, his structure still flickering with shock. Moderate temperatures, stable atmospheres, limited biological diversity. We developed civilization, safe environments, and expanded outward. with environmental protection. Technology. Humans developed civilization on a death world. Dr. Vilnick finished his voice, carrying academic devastation. You built cities, agriculture, technology, space, travel, all while exposed continuously to conditions that would kill most species in minutes. When you put it that way, it sounds impressive. Another human cadet admitted, but honestly, it's just home. You don't think about it being dangerous when it's normal. A Zethian combat tactics instructor spoke up, her crystalline matrix pulsing with urgent realization. Commander, the strategic implications. If humans can operate in Class 12 environments without protection, every death world in the galaxy becomes accessible. Commander Jixuno finished, his entire thorax going rigid. Worlds we've classified as resource-rich but unreachable planets we've abandoned after failed expeditions. Entire systems we've written off as colonization impossible. You guys couldn't go to those places? Nix asked, genuine surprise in her voice. I thought the classification system was just like difficulty rankings, not actual barriers. Difficulty rankings. Kilix's harmonic voice cracked. She thinks Class 12 means difficult, not unsurvivable. To be fair, Earth is survivable. Nix pointed out. 10 billion of us manage it daily. Dr. Vilnick pulled up a holographic display showing a planet barren, hostile, classified as uninhabitable. This world designation Zerath 9. Atmospheric oxygen 19%, surface pressure 0.98, standard temperature range 2 plus 40 C, declared permanently unsuitable for colonization by unanimous scientific consensus. That sounds nicer than Minnesota. In January, a human cadet observed, why couldn't you colonize it? Because those conditions would kill us. The doctor's vocalization hit frequencies indicating complete breakdown. But they wouldn't kill you, would they? Doesn't sound that bad. Nix agreed. I'd probably bring a jacket for the cold days, but otherwise it seems fine. The lecture hall filled with the sound of multiple species processing existential horror simultaneously. The extreme survival course, Commander Jixuno said slowly, accessing his command slate. Human cadets consistently score in the 98th percentile. We attributed this to exceptional training. Now that course is pretty easy, Nick said, then caught herself. I mean, not to brag or anything, but yeah, it's basically just camping. We do that for fun on Earth. Camping. Kilix pulled up the course requirements: unassisted wilderness survival, exposure to hostile flora and fauna, temperature extremes, limited rations, navigation without technological assistance. Yeah, summer camp. Another human cadet nodded. I did that when I was 12, 4 weeks in the mountains with just a backpack in tent. Best summer ever. Your species sends juveniles into wilderness survival scenarios recreationally, the Zilthian instructor said flatly. As entertainment, character building. Nix corrected. My parents said it taught responsibility and self-reliance. Plus, you learn useful stuff like starting fires, identifying edible plants, basic first aid. First aid, Dr. Vilnick whispered. Medical treatment protocols for injuries sustained during recreational death world exposure. Well, yeah, people get hurt sometimes. Nick shrugged. Sprained ankles, cuts, broken bones. You just patch them up and keep going. My brother broke his arm falling out of a tree when he was 9. Had a cast for 6 weeks, then he was. Fine, a tree, Killick said distantly. Elevated position, uncontrolled descent. Skeletal fracture, and this is described as childhood. Kids climb stuff, Nix looked around at the assembled experts with growing concern. Are you all okay? You seem really stressed about this, Commander. Jixuno stood, his command presence returning despite the circumstances. Department heads, I need comprehensive analysis. How many classified unreachable worlds would become viable with human environmental capabilities? The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds before every data slate in the room began calculating simultaneously. Preliminary estimate, Dr. Vilnick finally said, his voice hollow. Approximately 63% of explored space, thousands of systems, tens of thousands of worlds, all accessible to humans. The Zilthian instructor added, who consider them equivalent to their home world, which they describe as nice. Nix raised her hand again. Just to clarify, when you say we can access all those places, you mean without suits, right? Because suits are really uncomfortable for long-term wear. The sound of xenobiologic understanding collapsing echoed through the lecture hall like a hymn to humanity's impossible baseline normal. If without suits, Commander Jixun confirmed, his mandibles spreading in what might have been the insect equivalent of a resigned smile. Because you're from Earth, yeah, Nix grinned. Best planet in the galaxy. Honestly, you guys should visit sometime. Department heads made various sounds, indicating that visiting Earth was now their primary nightmare scenario. Grand Admiral Zix then entered the lecture hall, flanked by the Joint Species Command Council, 5 of the most powerful military leaders in the galaxy, representing civilizations that had conquered star systems and negotiated peace across dimensional boundaries. They looked utterly unprepared for a classroom full of humans. I have reviewed the preliminary reports. The Admiral's tri-vocal harmonics carried absolute authority. They appear to contain significant errors. I am here to verify accuracy. No errors, sir. Commander Jixuno said grimly. The humans are Deathworld native. The Admiral's sensory stalk swiveled toward Nix. You explain your planet's baseline conditions systematically. Nix stood, suddenly aware she was addressing the highest military authority in known space. Okay. Earth rotates every 26 hours, orbits a G-type star at 1 astronomical unit distance. Atmosphere is 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen. Trace gases. Surface pressure averages 1. Standard temperature ranges from maybe to plus 60 C, depending on location and season. Clears throat. Season 1. Council member interrupted. Cyclical environmental variation. Yeah, we have 4 winter, spring, summer, fall. Nix counted on her fingers. Temperature and weather change throughout the year. You just adapt. Different clothes, different activities. Adaptation through textile modification, the Admiral said slowly. Continue. Gravity is one standard. Well, standard for us, I guess. We have liquid water covering about 70% of the surface. It's salty in the oceans, fresh in lakes and rivers. We drink it unprocessed. Water consumption clears throat. A council member noted, manipulating a data slate with trembling appendages. I mean, we filter it through treatment plants and cities. Nix clarified, but growing up rural, we had a well pumped it straight from underground and drank It tasted great, the Admiral's. Chromatic display pulsed, biological. Hazards quantify, oh we've got everything. Nix warmed to the topic. Bacteria, viruses, fungi, parasites. About 8 million species total, insects. Mammals, reptiles, fish, birds, lots of. Plants, some poisonous, weather includes. Lightning, tornadoes, hurricanes. Blizzards, droughts, floods, she paused. It's pretty diverse, the Admiral repeated, his vocalizations. Flat, you describe 8 million potentially. Hostile species and extreme. Meteorological phenomena as diverse. Well, yeah, keeps life interesting, Nick smiled, then noticed the council members. Various expressions of horror. Look, I know it sounds intense, but it's really not that bad. Humans consider Earth pretty moderate, the word came from 5 species simultaneously, creating a discordant chorus of disbelief. Yeah, we've got temperate zones where conditions are stable most of the year, decent rainfall, mild temperatures, good growing seasons. Nick shrugged. Sure, we've got extreme regions, deserts, Arctic zones, deep jungles, but most humans live in the comfortable parts of a Class 12 death world. Killick said, his structure now a steady deep blue, indicating acceptance of new reality, where comfortable means survivable. Without any protection, can you demonstrate injury resilience? The Admiral asked, his tone shifting to clinical assessment, physical evidence of environmental exposure. Nix rolled up her sleeve, revealing a long pale line across her forearm. This is from barbed wire when I was 11, climbing a fence I shouldn't have climbed, needed 16 stitches. Medical intervention for recreation injury, a council member recorded, and this Nix indicated a mark on her knee from falling off my bike on gravel. Rash basically stung like crazy, but healed in 2 weeks. She showed her hands. These calluses are from years of farm work. You develop them naturally from repetitive contact with rough surfaces. Your epidermis modified itself. The Admiral observed adaptation to hostile contact through cellular reinforcement. I guess. Nix looked at her palms. I just call them calluses. Everyone who does manual labor gets them. Another human cadet stood. I've got a scar from a dog bite when I was 8, and this one, he indicated his eyebrow, from walking into a branch while hiking, needed glue to close it. Glue, a council member whispered. Adhesive-based wound closure for recreational injury. Got struck by lightning once. An older human cadet volunteered. Well, near strike was fishing when a storm came up, knocked me down, burned my shoulder, hurt for weeks but no permanent damage. The council chamber fell into stunned silence. Grand Admiral Zix then manipulated his command interface, pulling up galactic charts. Strategic assessment. If humans require no environmental protection for Class 12 worlds and human baseline is Class 12 adaptation. He highlighted sectors across the display. Every death world becomes operationally accessible. Resource extraction, colonization, military positioning, all previously impossible scenarios become viable. Not just viable, sir, Commander Jixun added. Humans would be comfortable there. They'd consider it normal duty assignments. The human home world military trains personnel for environmental extremes. The Zilthian instructor said, accessing her files. But their extreme training protocols cover conditions that exceed Earth baseline. Vacuum operations, toxic Atmospheres Class 15 and above. Scenarios for everything Class 12 and below. They apparently just go efficiently, the Admiral said, watching. Comprehension spread through his command council while we deploy specialized equipment, multiple redundancy systems, extensive support logistics. Humans deploy themselves. Pretty much, Nick confirmed. I mean, we bring supplies and gear, but environmental protection isn't really necessary unless conditions actually exceed our tolerance, which is Class 12. Killick said, his harmonic voice now carrying something like awe. Your tolerance baseline is our maximum survival classification. The Admiral's display shifted through command patterns. Initiate comprehensive review. All planetary classifications. All exploration protocols. All colonization assessments. Cross-reference with human environmental tolerance data. He fixed his sensory array on Nix. Cadet, your species has just redefined what's possible in galactic expansion. Cool. Nix said, meaning it. Does this mean the lecture is over because I'm supposed to meet friends for lunch? The casual transition from paradigm shattering revelation to meal scheduling somehow made it worse. 3 weeks later, the Academy had implemented sweeping changes. A new mandatory course appeared in every non-human cadet's curriculum: human environmental capabilities and baseline tolerance assessment. Nix found herself guest lecturing to horrified audiences twice weekly. Death World exploration teams. Previously, theoretical research divisions received urgent funding increases and immediate operational status. Every team now required human leadership, not as consultants but as primary environmental specialists whose natural tolerance exceeded any technology the galaxy possessed. Commander Jixuno stood before the advanced strategy class, his mandibles clicking with enthusiasm that still carried undertones of existential unease. 17 star systems previously deemed inaccessible are now flagged for expeditionary assessment. 23 abandoned colonies are candidates for reclamation. Resource extraction operations can expand into regions we've avoided for centuries, all because humans can just walk around there. A Quilxian cadet said, his tone mixing admiration with species-specific horror. Correct. The commander highlighted planetary data. What we classified as unsurvivable, humans classify as habitable. What we considered extreme, they consider normal. This changes everything. Kikes, who'd voluntarily taken sabbatical to study human biology, returned to his lecture with renewed but traumatized purpose. He approached Nix after class with the careful demeanor of someone handling explosive materials. Cadet Nix, I need to verify something from your preliminary testimony. You mentioned swimming. Yeah, love swimming. Nick smiled. Great exercise, super fun in summer in oceans, unprocessed salt water containing unknown organisms and chemical concentrations. Well, yeah, ocean swimming is the best. Waves, decent temperature, lots of space. Nix paused, noticing his crystalline structure flickering erratically. Is that a problem? Behind Quilix, Velian aquatic species made a sound like drowning. You immerse yourself voluntarily in unfiltered marine environments. Sure, body surfing, snorkeling, diving, all pretty common beach activities. Nix's confusion grew. Do you guys not swim? We require controlled aquatic chambers with precisely balanced Chemical compositions, the Velian. Explain their gills fluttering with distress. Ocean environments would contaminate our respiratory systems. Fatally within seconds, oh nix. Process this, that's rough swimmings. Really relaxing, Kilix. Recorded the term like it was classified. Intelligence, you also mentioned hiking. In mountains during earlier discussions. Yeah, love hiking. Did a bunch of 14 ERs. In my home region, peaks over 14,000 FT. Elevation, a zilthian altitude. Specialist who'd been passing stopped. Abruptly, 14,000 FT, reduced oxygen. Partial pressure, temperature decline. Decreased atmospheric shielding from radiation. Yeah, you get tired. Easier and it's colder, but the views are incredible. Nix pulled out her data. Slate showing images of mountain vistas, totally worth the effort. The specialist examined the images like they depicted nightmare dimensions. You ascended voluntarily into hostile atmospheric conditions for aesthetic appreciation. An exercise, Nix added, good for cardiovascular health. Kix's structure pulsed through several colors indicating academic overload. Cadet Nix, would you consider Earth a pleasant destination for recreation? Absolutely. Nix's enthusiasm was genuine. Honestly, you guys should visit. It's beautiful. Mountains, oceans, forests, deserts. Something for everyone, really relaxing. Vacation spot, the assembled aliens made various sounds indicating that Earth remained their collective nightmare scenario despite or perhaps because of human reassurances. We'll consider that, Kilix managed diplomatically. Nix checked her schedule. Cool. Anyway, I've got advanced combat tactics in 10 minutes. See you next week for the environmental tolerance demonstration. She left the lecture hall with characteristic human nonchalance, leaving behind a group of instructors who realized they'd barely scratched the surface of human capabilities. She just invited us to vacation on a death world, the Velian said quietly. And meant it sincerely, Kilix agreed. Commander Jixuno, observing from the doorway, clicked his mandibles. Thoughtfully, begin preliminary assessment. What else do humans consider normal that we've classified as impossible? The question hung in the air, like a promise of future revelations. Outside, Nix walked barefoot across the academy courtyard, heading toward her next class, completely unaware she'd revolutionized galactic civilization. Before lunch, the grass felt nice under her feet.